we're grokking, and today what we're grokking is ants. We're grokking ants. I asked Grok. I put it to Grok, how many ants would I need to fill a human skin suit? Let's say the skin belonged to an 80-kilo man who was 6 foot tall, just a ballpark figure. That's all I'm after, I don't want an exact number. To estimate how many ants would be needed to fill a human skin suit for an 80-kilo, 6 foot tall man, we can make some rough calculations based on the volume of the human body and the volume of the average ant. Estimate the volume of the human body. An 80-kilogram man has a density close to that of water, approximately 1 kilo per litre. So the volume is roughly 80 litres, so that's 80,000 cubic centimetres. This includes all tissues, bones, organs, etc. A skin suit would primarily consist of the outer layer, and I do realise immediately that I've made a mistake here with the skin suit. We will correct it later. Because the ants, it'd be a lot of ants, do you know what I mean? And how are they really functioning and moving? They'd have to be all sort of holding hands and really closely knitted together, like when they make bridges and try to attack. I imagine go to war with other queen's ants in trees, and that's how they access the trees. A skin suit would primarily consist of the outer layer of skin, but since we're imagining filling the entire volume of the body as if the skin suit retains the body's shape, we'll use the full 80,000 cubic cubic centimetres, I apologise, as a ballpark for the internal volume. Estimate the volume of an ant. A typical ant, let's say an Argentinian ant, is about 3mm long, 1mm wide and 1mm tall. Approximating its volume as a rectangular prism, the volume of one ant is roughly 3mm times 1mm times 1mm, which equals 3mm cubed, which equals 0.003 cubic centimetres. Calculate the number of ants. Divide the volume of the human body by the volume of one ant. See, this is what teachers could never have ever predicted for me. Do you know what I mean? That this is what I would be doing with my time. I had one teacher say that I'd probably be a thief. I had another say that I wasn't really destined for much. I had some suggest that you probably won't even really hold down a job. Yet here I am, reading about the volume of ants for about 10 people who might even listen to this. Calculate the number of ants, divide the volume of the human... And they never would have predicted that you could just ask your phone these questions either. The sort of things I used to ask my teachers, I can now just ask my phone. The sort of things I used to ask friends and strangers in pubs. Divide the volume of the human body by the volume of one ant. So that's the volume of the body divided by the ant, which is 80,000 cubic centimetres divided by 0.003 cubic centimetres, which equals approximately 26,667 ants. Adjustments and considerations. Ants are not perfectly packable shapes, so there would be some empty space between them. A reasonable packing efficiency for irregular shapes might be around 60 to 70%, so we could increase the number by about 30 to 40% to account for this. Let's apply a 40% increase, which gets us about 37,333,333 ants. Ballpark figure. Accounting for the skin suit likely not being perfectly filled, it's not really accounted for the fact that the skin could stretch, the skin could be taut, the skin could be saggy. Do you know what I mean? And it's is it going to fill it and replicate the body? That's what we need to adjust for here, I think. We're learning, aren't we, as we go? That's the thing with grokking. We're learning and we're trying to get Grok to say weird shit to us, which I think we've got here, hopefully, as we get a little bit further in. Accounting for the skin suit likely not being perfectly filled, e.g. some areas like limbs might be less dense with ants, because I imagine that would help with the bending of the limbs. And the rough nature of these estimates, a ballpark figure is around 35 to 40 million ants. It's a lot of ants, isn't it? So you'd need roughly 35 million ants to fill the skin suit of a 80-kilogram, 6-foot tall man. This is a very rough estimate as it depends on the ant species, packing efficiency, and how tightly the skin suit is imagined to hold the shape of the body. So I've tried to give it a bit more. I have told it, ideally, I'd like the ants to be able to use the body like a mech suit, leaving in the bones and the muscles, and we will replace the blood with ants so that they can use the veins and arteries as highways to transport goods and the materials necessary for using their new mech suit. We will also hollow out a section of the head behind the eye as a sort of control centre for the queen to sit in and command her legions of followers from. So now how many ants would fit into this fella? To estimate how many ants would be needed to fill the blood vessels and the hollowed-out control centre in the head of an 80-kilogram, 6-foot-tall man's mech suit with bones and muscles left intact, blood replaced by ants and a control centre for the queen, we need to focus on the volume of the blood vessels and the hollowed-out head section. This is a creative and complex scenario, so we'll make reasonable assumptions and provide a ballpark figure. Maybe less maths for the future Groks, for the future Grokkins, do you think? A few less. Does the microphone need to be lifted up a little bit like this? I bet that sounds a bit nicer now, doesn't it? Total blood volume. An average adult male, 80 kilograms, has about 5 to 6 litres of blood. For an 80 kilogram man, let's use 5.5 litres as a midpoint. Blood resides in the vascular system, arteries, veins and capillaries. Since the scenario calls for ants to use veins and arteries as highways to transport goods, we'll assume the ants occupy the entire volume of the blood vessels, replacing the blood. Assumption. The ants fill the blood vessels completely using the 5,500 cubic centimetres as the primary volume for their highway system. Estimate the volume of the control centre in the head. Hollowed out section behind an eye. The human head has a volume of about 4 to 5 litres, 4 to 5,000 cubic centimetres. Including the skull, brain and other tissues, the brain itself is about 1,200 to 1,400 cubic centimetres. The scenario suggests hollowing out a section behind an eye for the Queen's control centre, the orbit, i.e. the eye socket, and surrounding area. That would be the name of the control centre, by the way, the orbit, because that's a fucking mint name for it. This is what it's missing. It's missing that little bit of a mwah, the little fucking artist touch. Not I'm calling myself an artist, just that little bit of a fucking bit of seasoning or something. You know, that's what it is. That's the orbit now, is where the Queen sits and looks at all these like CCTV cameras, like she's living inside the architect's room in the Matrix. And surrounding area, including some of the frontal and temporal lobe space, might provide a small cavity. Estimate. A reasonable size for this control centre could be approximated as a sphere or cube with a volume of about 100 to 200 cubic centimetres, e.g. a cube roughly 5 centimetres by 5 by 5, or a sphere with a radius of about 3 centimetres. Let's use 150 centimetres cubed as a ballpark. This space would be carved out of the brain or skull area, leaving the rest of the head intact with bones and muscles remain. Total volume for ants. Blood vessels, 5,500 cubic centimetres for the ants using the veins and arteries as highways. Control centre, 150 centimetres cubed, hollowed out section for the Queen. Total volume equals 5,650 cubic centimetres. Anyone could have worked out that maths. Estimate the volume of an ant. As in the previous calculation, it's 0.003 cubic centimetres. So now we divide that original number of 5,650 divided by 0.003. It gets us 1,883,333 ants. It keeps using recurring threes, which it's because we're dividing it by 3, but it's irritating. Adjust for packing efficiency and functionality. Packing efficiency, but ants aren't perfectly packable. It's saying the same thing. So approximately then we would need to account for the space in between the ants. 2,636,666 ants, because we've got to times it by 1.4 again. Functional considerations. The ants are not just filling space, but actively moving through the veins and arteries to transport materials and operate the mech suit. This might require fewer ants and a fully packed volume to allow for movement. But the control centre would likely be densely packed. For simplicity, we'll stick with the adjusted figure. Queen's control centre. The queen ant, e.g. an Argentinian ant queen, is larger than a worker, with a volume of roughly 0.1 to 0.2 centimetres cubed. If the control centre, 150 centimetres cubed, it's because I keep going to say squared instead of cubed, is primarily for the queen and a small retinue of workers, it may only need a few hundred ants plus the queen. However, since the control centre is small compared to the vascular system, its impact on the total is minimal. Ballpark figure. After adjustments, a reasonable estimate of 2.5 to 3 million ants to fill the blood vessels as highways and the control centre with enough space for movement and functionality. This assumes the ants are primarily in the vascular system and control centre with bones and muscles left intact, so the total volume is much smaller than filling the entire body. Final answer. You'd need roughly 2.5 million ants to replace the blood in the veins and arteries, using them as highways, and to occupy a hollowed-out control centre of the brain behind the eye. This is a ballpark figure accounting for the volume of the vascular system, the control centre, and the need for ants to move and function within the suit. Now, we've now learnt how many ants there are. Now we're going to try and tell us how we could make this possible. So what we've asked it is, what I've asked it is, what equipment would I need to make this possible, and would the ants require anything from me to be able to use the mech suit to integrate into human society? Grok has replied, Creating a functional mech suit made from a human body where ants replace the blood to use veins and arteries, it does repeat itself a lot and operate from a control centre behind the eye known as the orbit, is a highly speculative and fantastical concept. It blends biology, engineering and science fiction. So the following response will outline the theoretical equipment and considerations needed to make this possible, while acknowledging the significant biological and practical barriers. I'll also address what the ants might need to integrate this suit into human society, assuming a speculative framework where a construct could exist. Oh, wow. Equipment needed to make the ant-controlled mech suit possible. To create this ant-operated human mech suit, you'd need equipment to prepare the human body, modify it for ant habitation, and enable the ants to control and operate it. Here's a breakdown of the theoretical equipment and processes. Number 1. Biological preparation and preservation. Surgical suite. A sterile operating room with advanced surgical tools like scalpels, retractors, which I don't know why you would need a retractor. I'm thinking of a protractor. I don't know what a retractor is. Sutures, etc. I was thinking that little like semicircle thing that you use in maths class. But it's obviously not that. Unless you put a knife at the end of it, I suppose it'd be a good handle for a scalpel blade. To carefully remove the blood and prepare the body whilst preserving bones, muscles and the vascular system. Embalming equipment. To preserve the body and prevent decay, you'd need embalming fluids, for example formaldehyde-based solutions. Perfusion pumps, to flush out the blood and to replace it with a biocompatible medium to keep tissues intact until the ants are introduced. Cryopreservation system. If the suit is prepared in advance, cryopreservation equipment, liquid nitrogen tanks, vitrification solutions, could theoretically maintain the body's structural integrity without decomposition. Microsurgical tools. Precision instruments for hollowing out a small control centre known as the orbit, measures 150 cubic centimetres behind an eye, preserving the skull and any surrounding tissues. Number 2. Vascular system modification. Tools for changing the arteries into highways. Perfusion pumps and catheters. To flush blood from the vascular system and replace it with a biocompatible ant-friendly medium, e.g. a nutrient-rich gel or a saline solution that supports ant survival and movement. So they would need to keep getting food from me, wouldn't they? You'd need to keep... So you'd have to encourage this body to eat and digest. Okay, maybe that's something that we'll have to consider with it as well. Microengineering tools. I think may have even just read that. No. Microengineering tools to modify veins and arteries for ant navigation, such as widening certain pathways or adding microscopic access points for ants to enter or exit. This might involve 3D printed scaffolds or nanotechnology to reinforce vessel walls. Imagine if one ant just gets angry though and starts just fucking biting the veins and all the other ants are like, no, pack it in. Biocompatible coatings. Equipment to apply coatings inside the blood vessels to prevent degradation and make them suitable as ant highways, e.g. some form of polymer sprayer or chemical deposition systems. Deposition systems, maybe? Never heard the word before. Control centre construction. Neurosurgical tools. Precision drills, lasers, or micro-excavation tools to hollow out a 150 cubic centimetre cavity behind an eye known as the orbit without damaging the skull or facial structure. 3D printing equipment to create a custom biocompatible enclosure for the queen ant and her retinae in the control centre, ensuring stability and protection. I like the idea of them having a little teammate as well. Just one bit of a gimpy ant that can't really... It's no good for answering the phones or welcoming people in at reception, but... she's lovely, or he's lovely, he's very friendly, very hospitable. He can go around, make the brews, people can sort of make fun of him, he goes along with it because they're a bit too thick to notice. And it keeps all the ants in good spirits, do you know what I mean? Microclimate control system, equipment to regulate the temperature, humidity and oxygen levels in the control centre, e.g. a miniaturised HVAC system or microfluidic channels to keep the queen and the workers alive. Ant integration and training. Ant colony maintenance equipment, including incubators, nutrient delivery systems and controlled environments to breed and sustain a colony of 2.5 million ants, of these Argentinian ants. This includes formicariums, food supplies like sugars and proteins, and water sources. Pheromone synthesis tools, chemical synthesis equipment to produce ant pheromones which could be used to guide ants through the vascular highways and coordinate their tasks. Behavioural conditioning setup, a speculative training system to condition ants to navigate the vascular system and respond to commands. This might involve microelectrodes, pheromone dispensers, or even genetic engineering tools to enhance ant responsiveness. Number 5, mech suit operation and the control. neuromuscular stimulation system, electrodes and stimulators to artificially activate muscles, allowing the ants to pilot the suit by triggering muscle contractions. This could involve implantable neurostimulation devices connected to the control center. So the ants can be like, hit the leg, right, left, ankle, knee, toe, all these ants chanting out these. I'll give you a little idea of what it might sound like in there, bear with me.
Bend the other knee.
Yeah, we've got a staircase. Bend the other knee. That's going to be a bend the other knee. Yeah, bend the other knee. And they're saying all of this, but what's actually happening is then the ants under that, who are in charge of that button, are pressing that button to release the pheromones or the stimulation down there in those arteries to make them ants in that area do the job that's needed to be done. Possibly. Sensory feedback system, cameras, microphones or other sensors mounted on the suit, e.g. in the eyes or ears, to relay environmental data to the queen in the control centre. This might require microelectronics or wireless communication systems. So we've gone Bluetooth now, but it does it add to the idea as well of the command centre, makes it more like a security room in a supermarket, in like B&Q or something like that. Power supply. A compact power source, e.g. microfluidic fuel cells or batteries, to run sensors, stimulators and climate control systems integrated into the suit without disrupting ant pathways. Now, is it possible that we could have some form of dynamo system, or maybe some of the bigger ants of the colony could be constantly turning a wheel which generates the electricity, maybe? Or could we not harvest the natural electricity in the brain for this? Robotics interface, a speculative system to translate ant movements or pheromone signals into electrical commands for muscle stimulation, possibly using AI to interpret ant behaviour. I don't like the idea of introducing AI. I really don't, because then it's less about the ants. Do you know what I mean? There's less ants then. If you've got the AI, like AA, even artificial ants. You don't want artificial ants there in your human mech suit powered by ants. Genetic or biological engineering. Very speculative now, it says. I like that it's saying this is speculative, this isn't real. Don't be thinking this is what's actually going to be happening. CRISPR, or gene editing tools, to modify ants for enhanced intelligence, communication or physical capabilities, e.g. stronger mandibles for manipulating tissues or better oxygen efficiency for surviving in the suit because they're not getting much air. Synthetic biology equipment, to engineer a hybrid ant-human interface such as bioluminescent markers for ants to signal status of bioengineered tissues to integrate ants with the suit's muscles. So like the ants would be connected almost. That's mad. Monitoring and maintenance. Imaging systems, MRI, CT scanners or endomicroscopy to microendoscopy to monitor the suit's internal structure and ant activity non-invasively. No, fuck that. Put a camera in there. Pop a camera in there and get me 5 of your best ant translators right now, listening to what these ants are saying. Maintenance drones, micro robots or nanobots, the ants won't like that, to repair it. They fucking hate it when you put something else in there with them, don't they, in them videos on YouTube. Micro robots and nanobots to repair damage to the vascular highways or remove dead ants, equipped with microfabrication tools. Then again, they've sold it me on like removing the dead ants. You've got to do something with those dead ants. Data analysis software. AI systems to analyse ant behaviour, optimise their coordination and ensure the suit functions as intended. Not sure now if Grok's edging for a job. Key challenges. Biological viability. Human tissues decay without blood flow, so the suit would need constant preservation of bioengineering to remain functional. The ant survival is a challenge. Ants require food, oxygen and waste removal, which is difficult in a closed vascular system. Control complexity. Coordinating 2.5 million ants to operate a human body is beyond current biological or computational capabilities, requiring speculative advances in neurobiology or AI. Part 2. What ants would need to integrate into human society. For the ant-controlled mech suit to integrate into human society, for example, walk, talk and interact convincingly as a human, the ants would need significant support to operate the suit and mimic human behaviour. Here's what they'd require from you. Operational support, power and nutrient supply. The ants need a constant flow of food, like the sugars and proteins mentioned earlier, and oxygen delivered to the vascular system in the control centre. You'd need to install microfluidic channels or external nutrient ports to sustain the colony. So, quite possibly, it would be easier to keep the veins as a food source for the ants, and then have the ants use the rest of the body, maybe like remove some of the muscles, if you like. Just some of the muscles, and then the ants can do the work on them. Because the mech suit doesn't need to be strong. The mech suit's more about these ants being able to live a regular human life, almost. Although they'll never enjoy anything or anything like that. They'll never actually have anything human. They'll never eat, they'll never shit, nothing. But they could shit out all the dead ants. The microdrones could pull the ants to the arsehole, and then it could be one ant's job to just, like, play some music. He gets a bugle, it's just... And then it releases the arsehole, and all these ants go flying out down the floor, looking like this guy shit himself, but like just peppered like peanuts out of his arse. No one would have a clue what that was. People would just be pointing at him, going, "That fella, that fella's just dropped loads of dead ants out of his ankles." Because obviously he'd have trousers on, because it'd draw suspicion, wouldn't it, if it was walking round naked? Oh. A system to remove ant waste, dead ants from the suit, possibly via microfiltration of external vents to prevent clogging of the vascular highways. Climate control. The suit must maintain temperature and humidity suitable for ants, for example, 25 to 30 degrees, 70 to 80% humidity, requiring integrated cooling and heating systems. Sensory and communication systems. External sensors, cameras, microphones and tactile sensors to provide the queen with environmental data. Now imagine if you put some of them on the genitals as well, and then you can hardwire it into the queen, and the queen just becomes like proper fucking sex heavy, and it's like, this does something nice. I'll give you my pheromones, guys, if we can make that happen. And then do you want to hear what that might sound like while she's trying to command the sex bit?
Grab the right hand as she holds the shoes by the back. Grab the shoes just with 2 fingers so we don't lose them.
Just tickle it. Pulse. I imagine we'd want cameras on the inside as well, so that we can maybe run this as a TV show and stuff as well, to make some money back, because it's going to cost a fucking fortune if we did do this. I don't think I'm going to ask it how we could fund this, like what governmental bodies or institutions would allow us to fund this research. Maybe that is a good question. I don't know how much there's actually told us, how much is left. But if there is, then maybe we'll ask that. Maybe we will. I'm definitely going to ask it how we would fund it. It does turn out there's quite a lot left, but we'll carry on. Sensory and communication. The external cameras, microphones and tactile sensors to provide the queen with environmental data. For example, a camera in the eye socket could relay visual information, but you'd need a way to translate this into a form the queen can process. So you'd have to have a translator for what... for what a human eye can see, and then you translate that into vibrations and pheromones for the queen ant. Speech synthesis. To mimic human speech, the suit would need a voice box or speaker system controlled by the ants or an AI intermediary. You'd need to train the ants to trigger specific sounds or rely on pre-programmed responses. So I imagine a lot of this would actually just sound like... like that, just loads of like tapping and click. I don't know what noise ants would make, but I imagine if you're pretty close to them, it's a lot of the mandibles just clacking. I don't know if that picked up. That was me clacking my teeth together. I'll have a little listen back and see. Yeah, I think we got away with that. To mimic human speech, the suit would need a voice box or speaker system controlled by the ants or an AI intermediary. You'd need to train the ants to trigger specific sounds or rely on pre-programmed responses. So there's your suspicion now. People would be now suspicious of this constantly warm, whirring thing that drops ants like sultanas out the back of its trousers every, 400 metres? How long does an ant live for? How long would it take for this person to move? And now it's constantly just going, yes! Hello! Like an NPC, literally just you've made an NPC out of ants. It's like, thank you. Would you like to have sex with our queen? Just things like that. Motor control interface, a system to translate ant commands, e.g. pheromone signals or physical movements, into muscle contractions for walking, gesturing or facial expressions. This might involve AI to interpret ant behaviour and map it to human actions. See, that's not what I was thinking. I was thinking they use it like a robot, but they put in the commands like we heard before, like move the leg, move the foot. We're not going to go through that again. But they say that, and then the ants in that section get a little screen appear going work, 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 and the ants in that section then pull it, the muscle or prod the muscle or electrocute the muscle with the little ant tasers or something, whatever it would need to make the muscle contract and move. I don't know if you could make these bodies fight each other either. I don't think they'd be able to do that, which is a shame, because you would be meant to see two ant bodies battering each other, neither of them knowing they're beating up another ant colony, and they're just trying to be the most convincing MMA fighter in the world, but they're made of ants, and they're just fighting each other, being like, no one can ever know that we're ants. This guy can't beat us or cut us, because when we get cut, we just bleed ants. Social mimicry. Behavioural programming. The ants would need guidance to mimic human behaviour, e.g. walking patterns and social cues. You could use AI to pre-program human-like responses or train the ants via conditioning to perform specific tasks, e.g. shaking hands. So when it's going, hello, and it just shakes your hand. Goodbye, and it shakes your hand again. Appearance maintenance. The suit's skin must look lifelike, requiring makeup, prosthetics, or bioengineered skin to hide stitches or decay. Yeah, because you'd have to stitch it up, wouldn't you, once you've poured all the ants in, I suppose. I hadn't thought of that either. You'd need to regularly maintain the suit's exterior to pass as human. You're just looking like a zombie. People are like, oh my god, have you seen Frank? I'm pretty sure Frank's dead. And he just keeps dropping everywhere he goes. There's all these dead ants wherever Frank's been. I've really enjoyed this one. This might be the best. This might go out publicly just to fucking advertise. Social training. To integrate into society, the ants would need to learn basic social norms. E.g., you never think that's the point of school. You're learning social norms to learn to respond to your name, like a dog. E.g., responding to names and following schedules. This could involve an AI more AI. He's trying to sneak in AI, yeah, innit, Grok, that interprets human interactions and cues the ants to respond appropriately. Nah, you just want one ant that knows his shit, and he's got a book there, and he's like, fucking hell, they made eye contact, they gave us a wink, and she bit her lip. Queen, I think we might be on here. You're gonna love this. And he's just flicking through his book, like thumbing through it, with licking his 6 hands, trying to find the page he needs. Oh, I know what we've got to do. He's trying to start a fight with us. If that bottle goes through us, we're going to bleed ants. Ant coordination and intelligence. Enhanced communicate. I like the idea that intelligence is like in the CIA sense and now, and it's just trying to garner information about us. Enhanced communication. Natural ant colonies use pheromones, but this is too slow for complex tasks like piloting a mech suit. You need to engineer ants with enhanced communication, e.g. faster pheromone signaling or bioengineered neural links to provide an AI to coordinate their actions. I wonder if this is something we're going to notice going forward with these questions to Grok. Is it always going to be trying to say, if you use AI, AI would not struggle at all, to make this ant colony empower a human mech suit. Queen empowerment. The Queen would need a way to process sensory data and issue commands. Speculatively, you could engineer her with a neural interface or provide a microcomputer in the control center to amplify her decision-making. Worker specialization. Different ant castes, so they've got a caste system now within the body, so they're getting closer to human society, e.g. workers, soldiers, could be assigned roles, e.g. transport, muscle activation. You'd need to breed or engineer ants with specific traits for these tasks. Legal and ethical cover. Oh, it's really getting into the nitty-gritty for us here. Identity documentation. To integrate into society, the suit would need a legal identity, e.g. an ID or passport. You'd need to forge documents or navigate legal systems to establish the suit as a person. Surely you just use the guy who's dead. You just don't let them announce he's dead. You're like, I know this doctor, right? He's got us a guy who was called Frank in his life. No one knows he's dead. He's been on holiday for months. He's had an accident. He was getting turkey teeth and he's gone horribly wrong. He's got infected. He's died. Now, my dentist over there that I've been paying off, he does have an ant guy, but we can get an ant guy in the UK if we need one. But it might be easier to do all the work there, because it's going to be we don't want a weekend at Bernie's, Frank's body, to be able to turn him into a colonised ant farm, like a mobile ant farm. That's the last thing we need, is getting caught with Frank's body on a plane. And when they're like, what are you doing with him? We're like, well, we might as well come clean. We're going to fill him with ants. I very rarely laugh at stuff I say. I'm really fucking enjoying this. Oh, God. Ethical disguise. Since a human... What a sentence. Sorry. Since a human corpse controlled by ants would raise ethical and legal issues, you'd need to conceal the suit's true nature, possibly by presenting it as a robotic or prosthetic construct. No, we're making people believe he's alive still. We've covered that ourselves. That's what we've got over AI here. Public interaction protocols. You'd need to coach the ants, or their AI intermediary, to avoid behaviours that reveal their non-human nature, e.g. erratic movements, and dispose of their ant-like responses. Maintenance and repair. Regular upkeep. The suit would degrade over time, requiring you to provide tissue preservatives, muscle stimulants, or replacement parts to keep it functional. Ant replacement. Ants have short lifespans, weeks to months, so you'd need a system to replenish the colony, such as breeding chambers or an external ant recruitment centre. That's really pushing out like the sci-fi stuff, an ant recruitment centre. Emergency protocols. If the suit malfunctions, e.g. muscle failure, or the ants die off, you'd need backup systems, e.g. robotic actuators, nutrient reserves to maintain functionality. No robotic actuators. I want ants. Ants are doing the job. If I didn't want we'll get the termites in. If that's the case, they'll do a better job. Key challenges for integration. Human mimicry. Ants lack the cognitive capability to mimic complex human behaviour, so an AI or an external controller would likely be needed to puppet the suit convincingly. No, I want it to be Frank's gone mad. Frank thinks he's a bag of ants. Detection risk. The suits. Oh, fuck me. This is mint. I don't know if yous are like me. Do yous get to watch all this in your brain? The suit's unusual nature, e.g. lack of body heat, and the exudation of ant odours, could be detected by medical scans, dogs, or close inspection, requiring advanced camouflage. Ant motivation. Ants act on instinct, not human goals. You'd need to align their instincts with the suit's objectives, possibly through genetic engineering or constant pheromone manipulation. Feasibility and speculative nature. Current limitations. Modern science cannot preserve a human body as a functional mech suit, coordinate millions of ants for complex tasks, or enable ants to process human-like sensory data. The concept requires breakthroughs in bioengineering, nanotechnology, and AI. Speculative solutions. Advances in synthetic biology, e.g. bioengineered ants with neural interfaces, robotics, e.g. muscle actuating implants, and AI, e.g. translating ant signals into human actions, could theoretically make this possible in a very distant future. Ethical issues. Using a human body, Frank, even a deceased one, raises profound ethical and legal questions, likely requiring you to operate in secret or under a guise. Claiming the suit is a robot. Everyone's like, no, mate, you've clearly filled Frank's veins with ants. That's all that's happened here. There's no robot there, mate. There's no beeping. It's not heavy. It feels like it weighs about 5,000 ants. I suppose it'd also weigh most of the body though as well. Final answer, equipment needed. You'd need surgical and embalming tools to prepare the body and preservative tissues, microengineering equipment to modify blood vessels for ant highways, neurosurgical and 3D printing tools to create a control centre behind an eye, ant colony maintenance systems, incubators, nutrient supplies, neuromuscular stimulators, sensors and power supplies to enable movement and perception, speculative tools like gene editing, pheromone synthesis and AI to coordinate ants and mimic human behaviour, monitoring and maintenance systems to ensure functionality. ant requirements for integration. For the ants to use the suit and integrate into society, they would need constant nutrient, oxygen, and waste management systems to survive in the suit, sensors like cameras and microphones, and a speech system to perceive and interact with the environment. AI, they're just staring. Every time you bump into Frank, he's just on his hands and knees. Crying on his hands and knees, crying his heart out, pointing at ants on the ground, trying to stroke them, keeps crushing them because they can't control their hand that well, and he's crying even more. This queen's weeping inside, and it's just one of his pre-programmed things he says is, "You don't know how lucky you are." And you walking past, you're like, "You right, Frank? He's just crushing ants. You don't know how lucky you are." And then he dumps a load of dead ones in front of them as well. Oh, fuck. AI or engineered communication to coordinate 2.5 million ants, or 2.5 million it was, and mimic human behaviour. I've forgotten how, this is like gone on over half an hour, sorry, this has been very long. Maintenance of the suit's appearance and functionality to pass it off as human, legal documentation and social training, and speculative enhancements. This is a highly speculative scenario requiring technology far beyond current capabilities, but the outlined equipment and support systems provide a framework for what would theoretically be needed. If you have specific aspects, e.g. ant engineering, suit camouflage, that you'd like to explore, let me know. And then I did ask it, how will we fund this? What governmental or private company will allow for this? This sentence is going to break me again. It's because it keeps saying ant-controlled human. Funding an ant-controlled human mech suit project, as described, is an extraordinary, speculative and unconventional endeavour that faces significant scientific, ethical and legal hurdles. The concept involves using a human body as a mech suit. Then we're just repeating earlier. Let's see. We're just... it's telling me what it's going to do. Okay, challenges to securing funding. I think in the future we won't read that first paragraph it gives there, because it basically just pads out my question. It's like when you're told, like, answer with the question, like basically when you do your GCSEs or whatever. Challenges to securing funding. Before exploring funding sources, it's critical to acknowledge the barriers. Ethical concerns. Using a human body, even a deceased one, as a mech suit raises severe ethical issues, including desecration of human remains, consent and public perception. Most funding bodies, especially governmental or reputable private entities, have strict ethical guidelines that this project would likely violate. Scientific feasibility. The project requires speculative technologies, e.g. preserving a human body indefinitely, coordinating 2.5 million ants to operate muscles, engineering ants for complex tasks that are not currently achievable. Funders typically prioritise projects with clear, attainable goals and proven methodologies. Which makes sense. Why would they invest in the ant suit? Legal issues. Laws in most countries regulate the use of human remains. That leaves a few that's possible. Genetic engineering and bioengineering experiments. The project could face legal bans or restrictions, deterring funders. Public backlash. The macabre nature of an ant-controlled human suit could provoke public outrage, making it a risky investment for companies or governments concerned with reputation. The practical... Oh, fucking hell, my stomach's so sore from laughing, man. Practical utility. Funders seek projects with clear application. It's basically saying, what's the point? What's the point of the ant suit, Jack? Why do we want why would anyone want it? Oh, fuck me. The mech suit purpose. Integration into human society is vague and lacks a compelling use case compared to existing robotics or exoskeletons. To secure funding, the project would need to be reframed as a scientific experiment and legitimate purpose. Studying ants. Oh, fuck me. I don't know why I find it so funny. I should have filmed this. Oh, fucking hell. Oh, a video version of this would have been mint. e.g. studying ant swarm intelligence, advancing bioengineering, or developing novel robotics, and, and stripped of ethically problematic elements, e.g. using a synthetic... using... I can't say it. Yeah, it doesn't want me using the skin. It doesn't want a human mech suit. It thinks if we use a synthetic or robotic suit instead of a human body, it'd be better. Oh god, it's hurting my head to laugh. I'm keeping all the laughs in, even if it's annoying. Oh, okay. Potential funding sources. Given the speculative nature, funding would likely come from unconventional or high-risk sources willing to invest in fringe or futuristic projects. Below are potential governmental, private or other funding avenues, along with their likelihood of supporting the project. Governmental funding. Governments fund research through grants, often prioritising projects with national interest, e.g. defence, health and technology. However, the ethical and feasibility issues make most government funding unlikely unless the project is heavily reframed. Oh, it really doesn't like it, but it's still telling me. Why is it going along with me? No, sometimes I don't use some of the questions because it can tell I'm taking the piss. But with this one, it's took it quite seriously. The US Department of Defense, DARPA. Relevance. DARPA has funded unconventional robotics projects like the DARPA Robotics Challenge, which invested tens of millions into humanoid robots and self-driving cars. A project exploring swarm intelligence or bio-inspired robotics might appeal to DARPA's interest in next-generation military technologies. Likelihood, low. DARPA funds high-risk, high-reward projects. It's got me again. But the use... Ah, fuck me. Yeah, but the use of human remains and ants as a control mechanism would likely be deemed unethical and impractical, reframing the project to focus on synthetic bio-inspired swarm robotics, e.g. using ants to inform AI algorithms for robotic control could increase the chances. Requirements. A detailed proposal demonstrating military applications, ethical compliance and feasibility. DARPA would require partnerships with established research institutions. Process. You would apply through DARPA's broad agency announcements on their website. National Science Foundation, the NSF. Relevance. The NSF funds innovative research through programs like America's Seed Fund, which awarded over 3,600 grants to startups between 2016 and 2023. A project studying ant colony behaviour or bioengineering could align with their biology and robotics programs. I am crying from laughing. Likelihood very low. The human body component would violate NSF's ethical guidelines, and the project's speculative nature lacks the rigour NSF requires. A reframed project focusing on ant-inspired algorithms or synthetic biology might be considered. Requirements. A peer-reviewed proposal with clear scientific merit submitted via NSF. Process. Apply through NSF's grant portals. I would get fucking sectioned if I was like, I'm going to do this, guys. Do you want to pay me? International government programs. This could be fucking ropey. This could be where we're not able to put it online now. On public. China has identified humanoid robotics as a new productive force for economic growth, with government support for companies like Ubtech and Unitree. And a bio-inspired robotics project might attract interest, but the human body aspect would probably be a non-starter due to ethical concerns. Japan has a history of funding mech-related projects known as Karutas and Arcax. I'm going to take a screenshot of those because we're going to look into those at some point. However, these are mechanical, not biological, and the ethical issues would deter government support. Likelihood. Extremely low. No government is likely to fund a project involving human remains and international regulations on bioethics, e.g. UNESCO's Universal Declaration on Bioethics would further limit support. They've made rules about this already. This is nearly an hour long. Private companies. Private companies fund R&D for profit-driven or branding purposes, but the project's ethical. And based on when it says ethical, but the project's, I don't know why the word ethical makes me laugh so much with this. Like, that's the hang-up it's got. You got to get the body. But the project's ethical and practical issues make corporate backing challenging. Tech giants with robotics divisions. Amazon. Agility Robotics. Amazon unveiled a Digit, a humanoid robot for warehouses, through its partnership with Agility Robotics. A project exploring swarm intelligence could theoretically align with their logistics goals. Tesla. Optimus. Tesla is developing Optimus, a humanoid robot. A bio-inspired control system might interest them, but the human body component would be a deal breaker. Likelihood very low. These companies prioritise practical, scalable technologies. A reframed project using synthetic materials and ant-inspired AI might attract exploratory funding. Approach, pitch to their R&D divisions through industry conferences or direct outreach, emphasising swarm intelligence applications. Biotech and synthetic biology companies like Ginkgo Bioworks specialises in synthetic biology and could be interested in engineering ants for novel applications. Zmergen, acquired by Ginkgo, focused on bioengineering for industrial uses. Likelihood low. That's the best we've had for a while. Just low, not very low, not really low, not extremely low, just low. These companies work within strict ethical and regulatory frameworks, and the human body aspect would be unacceptable. A project engineering ants for non-human applications, e.g. micro robotics, might be considered. Approach, submit a white paper to their innovation labs, focusing on ant engineering. Ant Group. Relevance. Ant Group recently entered the humanoid robot industry. These sound perfect for us. Signalling interest in cutting-edge technology, that's what this is. However, their focus is on mechanical robots, not biological systems. Extremely low likelihood, guys. The project's ethical issues and lack of commercial viability. No commercial guy. Who's going to buy this? Who's going to buy Frank or son of Frank? And lack of commercial viability would deter them. A reframed project on swarm intelligence, really pushing for this swarm intelligence thing, might pique interest. Approach, contact the R&D division. Speculative venture capital. Firms. There's just a list of companies that have backed robotics. Likelihood low. Venture capitalists seek near-term returns, and this project's long timeline and ethical issues of deterrence. A synthetic swarm robots. It really wants a synthetic swarm thing. Pitch at startup accelerators. Non-governmental organisations now, NGOs and philanthropic organisations. What philanthropic organisation is going to be like? Yeah, this is very philanthropic. This. Let's get a dead guy. Let's exhume Frank and fill him with ants. The Wellcome Trust. Relevance funds biomedical research. Likelihood very low. The human body component violates their ethical standards. A project studying ant swarm behaviour for medical applications might be considered. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Funds innovative health and biotech projects. Likelihood extremely low. The project's lack of humanitarian application and ethical issues make it ineligible. Reframe it as a health-related bioengineering project, so the ants go in there and keep you alive, maybe. E-Art Foundation, relevant, supported Jonathan Tippett's prosthesis mech suits, focusing on STEM and electric power. Likelihood moderate. If reframed, they might fund a robotic or bio-inspired version of the project as an art-science hybrid, but the human body aspect would be a non-starter. That's a shame. Maybe a gorilla or something then. Something big. Thick veins we want. We want thick veins that ants can walk around in, like an horse or an elephant. Maybe, or a hippo. Approach, contact them. It says crowdfunding and individual donors. This is looking good, guys, now. For fringe projects, imagine setting this up on GoFundMe. Platforms, Kickstarter or Patreon. Hey, this is what we could be putting your money towards. Could attract niche supporters, sci-fi enthusiasts and biohacking communities. Likelihood moderate. The project's bizarre nature might appeal to a small, curious audience, but ethical concerns could limit traction. Just 30 weird guys like, yeah, I can get you Frank and I can get you the ants. I could get you a good drill for the microscopic fucking surgeries. Approach. create a compelling campaign, emphasize. Now, if anybody could create a compelling campaign, it would be me. I reckon I could market this concept, emphasizing the sci-fi aesthetic, but avoid human remains to prevent platform bans. So he's even thinking about that. Wealthy patrons, individuals like Elon Musk or Peter Thiel, sometimes fund speculative projects, likelihood low. They prioritise scalable, high-impact tech, and this project's ethical issues would deter them. Network and meet them to be able to do it. That's a terrible approach. Just meet these people. Public-private partnerships. Public-private partnerships combine government and private funding for innovative projects, especially in developing countries. Ooh. A PPP, as it's called, could theoretically fund a biorobotics project for disaster response. So you get all these dead people, fucking hell, 30 kids dead in a hospital after a terrible earthquake. Richter scale 10 it may have marked up at. Full marks on the Richter scale. We got loads of kids. Send in the ants. Send in the ant guys. Fill them with ants. Fill them with ants now and make them lift the rubble and clear the body. There could be some of them under there still alive. Let the ants, train the ants to bite them first to see if they scream or wince. Very low, likelihood-wise. Ethical and feasibility issues make it unattractive. They like bankable projects. Strategies to secure funding. To increase the likelihood of funding, the project must be reframed to address ethical, scientific and practical concerns. Here are some key strategies. We got, fucking hell, there's quite a lot left. I don't know if this is still fun, but reframe as bio-inspired robotics, replace the human body with a synthetic. That's not what we want. Focus on swarm intelligence. Now it's just sort of telling us all the stuff it's kept repeating. Target niche communities. Engage sci-fi, biohacking or transhumanist communities via crowdfunding or conferences. Highlight the project's futuristic appeal to attract small-scale donors. Address the ethical concerns. Develop a synthetic or animal model-based prototype to avoid the human remains. Yes, a horse, a hippo, an elephant. Maybe we can combine various different animals together. Why not? We could maybe even make synthetic veins then. Just tubes, and we put all these different animals together. A living, well, not living, a dead, unbreathing, an amalgamation of huge proportions developed purely for ant colonisation. Could be a possibility then. Partner with bioethicists to create a framework to ensure compliance. No. Entities most likely to allow funding. Eat Art, DARPA, NSF. I don't think this is true. I don't think you can believe this for what Grok's saying here. I don't think these people are definitely not going to give me money for this. I'd be surprised if people give me money to listen to this. Ethical and legal considerations. To attract any reputable funder, the project must comply with bioethics regulations. A lot of vowels, it's bioethics regulations. Adhere to guidelines like the Declaration of Helsinki. Human remains laws. Most countries prohibit using human bodies for such purposes. You cannot fill human bodies with ants without explicit consent or regulatory approval. Animal welfare. Engineering ants could raise concerns under animal research laws. Public perception. Funders will avoid projects likely to provoke backlash. Yeah, these guys have dug up my Uncle Frank and filled him with ants. Rough cost estimates, though. Here we go. R&D for the bioengineering robotics. About $10 million. US dollars. Prototype development would be about $2 million for the 3D printing, sensors and actuators. Ant colony maintenance, $500,000. Ethical and legal compliance to get the consultants and the permits is $500,000 again. So about $15 million depending on the scope. For the original human body-based project, costs would be higher due to preservation and ethical hurdles, likely exceeding the $20 million mark with no realistic funding source. You'd have to fund it yourself. I would have to make $20 million and then use that to fund this project if I wanted to do it. It's saying, final answer, funding the project. The original ant-controlled human mech suit is unlikely to secure funding due to ethical, legal and feasibility issues. A reframe project, blah, 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 and it is just repeating itself again. Well, I hope you enjoyed that one as much as I enjoyed that one. This one might go out as a full episode on the podcast feed because I think it's been fun. And it advertises the Patreon, but we'll see. It's out now on Patreon if you're listening to this, obviously, and I might put it out publicly, I don't know, sometime in like July. Add it to the list on there. Because it's become an hour. The rest of these are about 15 minutes. So if you're listening to this publicly, if I have put it out, join the Patreon, patreon.com/worldaroundyou. £3 a month, or join the 7-day free trial. You can read all my books on there as well and download them. And you can listen to 300 and other shows which aren't like this, called Daily Updates. I imagine there's more of these by now. This was Grokkin 4 Ants. Well, no, number 4, Grokkin Ants, this will be called. I fucking hope you've enjoyed it. I'll fucking see you in a bit, mate.